Good day, friends, and welcome to another discussion in the English language. In our last class, we were looking at the sounds of English, and our intention was to do an overview of what sounds generally are, how they can help us as users of the English language to better pronounce words, and even to learn how to syllabify, that is, to split words. We ended up by saying that a mastery of the sounds of English and a clear-cut demarcation of what sounds do, which are different from what letters of the English alphabet do, we will be able to enhance a perfect English accent. And wherever we speak, people will enjoy us. That was it in summary. If we have to retrospect and look at what we saw under the sounds of English. Today, our lesson will be on something that is closely related to the sounds of English. It is called syllabification. Syllabification is an aspect of vocabulary. It must be highlighted that vocabulary cannot be treated in isolation because vocabulary and grammar are like two sides of the same coin. There are rules to follow in vocabulary as well as grammar. Hence, the two sides or the two sections of the language should be studied closely, that is side by side. To begin with, we cannot just go ahead and look at syllabification without saying what we understand by vocabulary. So what is vocabulary? Vocabulary views things like meaning of words, how words are spelled, how they could be syllabified, where the stress patterns are, and many other things put together. In brief terms, vocabulary could be said to be the study of all the words that exist in a language, their sound structures, their spellings, their meanings, and how these words can combine together to form meaningful sentences in English. Thus, this is the same for English vocabulary, which therefore means that if vocabulary has to do with the study of all the words in a given language, then the vocabulary of English will have to do with the study of all the words that exist in the English language, their spellings, how they could be syllabified, their stress patterns, how they could be pronounced, other aspects like synonyms, antonyms, and much more will be looked upon while studying vocabulary. So when you think vocabulary, think meanings of words, spellings, syllabification, stress pattern, pronunciation, synonyms, antonyms, and much more. It should be noted or stressed here that a mastery of sounds enhances syllabification. The question is how? When we looked at sounds, we said that as the letters are written, they are the representations of the raw form of themselves, which is called sounds. When you master sounds, you go further to master sound segments that make up a word. And those sound segments are in themselves the various parts that make up a word. And if you were to study syllabification, each sound segment represents a syllable. What then can we say syllabification is? What is syllabification? By syllabification, we mean the process by which words are split according to the number of sound segments which these words have or which the words are composed of. Words in English have different number of syllables depending on the sound formations. Better still, depending on the length of a word, you could generate the number of syllables that make up the word. So take note that syllabification is the process of splitting words according to the number of sound segments that the words have or are made up of. That is the take-home message for today. Syllabification is the process whereby words are split according to the number of sound segments which the words are made up of. Another thing which we will notice is that in order for us to study syllabification and hit our chest and say that syllabification can help us, we must look at the various ways through which syllabification can be understood. Now, we are talking about things like monosyllabic words, disyllabic words, trisyllabic words, or there can even be more syllables due to the length of the words. So words are syllabified, as you can find on the board, depending greatly on the length of the word. So there are different types of syllables or different numbers of syllables that words could have. As we find on the board, we will begin with the monosyllabic type of words. As we must know already, mono means one. So the examples on the board are words that are made up of one syllable. A word that has only one syllable should be stressed just once, and the stress should be hard enough. The words are car, man, dog, seat, sound, long, leg, look, see, send, stand, laugh, go, rich, poor, etc. You must have noticed that I pronounced these words with some difference of energy. That's to tell you that every monosyllabic word is stressed. When we come to stress, we shall understand. But by stress here, we mean the amount of energy that is placed on a specific syllable in a word that makes it or gives it a different level of pronunciation, greatly different from the other syllables or sound segments of the word. Again, we have disyllabic words. Di means two. By disyllabic words, we mean those words that are made up of two syllables. As we will find on the board, disyllabic words always have their stress on the first syllable. Sometimes they will go to the second, depending on some techniques which we shall discover. So, the disyllabic words on the board, as they are being written, are serpent, diary, center, teacher, doctor, driver, slumber, culture, moving, English, and much more. Story is another word. So, when pronouncing a word that is disyllabic in nature, make sure that the first sound segments have that amount of energy that the other sound segments do not have. Let us now move over to trisyllabic words. By tri, we mean three. Those words that fall under trisyllabic have three different sound segments that make up the words. The words are salvation, solution, Cameroon, deliver, guarantee, progression, the progression, computer, medicine, or better still, medical. Solomon, summary, a summary, a conclusion. Those words have 3 syllables, and as I was pronouncing the words out, you must have taken note that I was stressing the syllables that should carry the stress. Now let us go over to multisyllabic words. By multi here we mean many, that is more than 3 syllables. We have looked at monosyllabic, which means words that have 1 syllable. We have looked at disyllabic, which means words that have 2 syllables. And we have also looked at trisyllabic words, words that have 3 syllables. Now we want to look at those words that go beyond 3 syllables and more. Since we already mentioned that the length of a word determines the number of syllables or sound segments that the word will have, you would notice that these words that fall under multisyllabic words are longer in length compared to the tri, di, and monosyllabic words already seen above. Let us now together look at the words. We could read them together. Constitutional, independence, Africanization, inconvenience, syllabification, which is the lesson and vogue, antibiotics, stigmatization, Anglophone, identification, and much more. There are many words, but the question is, how many syllables do they have? Or better still, how many sound segments are they composed of? Someone will want to ask, why the lesson on syllabification? It is a very delicate and sensitive issue because today many people pronounce words differently, or they misspell these words simply because they do not master or they haven't yet mastered the syllabification of these words. If you can succeed to syllabify a word very well, then it is obvious that you will want to look at the sounds that make up each segment of the various syllables in the word, and next you want to look at the number of syllables that make up the word. So, how important is syllabification? Syllabification serves as a guide for us, learners of the language, to master the stress pattern of words. We have already said when we're looking at the words that when you pronounce a word very well, the next step is to look at the number of sound segments that make up the word. Then, the next thing is where the stress should be put while pronouncing the word. Stress is that amount of difference in energy that is placed on a particular sound vis-a-vis other sounds in the same word. Next, syllabification helps us in the enhancement of a perfect pronunciation in English. In other words, syllabification helps us to pronounce words well. Like already said, if we master how words are pronounced, then it is obvious that we will know how those words are spelled. A study of syllabification helps us to improve our spelling skills. When you know how to spell words well, you will obviously know how to pronounce them. And moreover, you will want to always tell the number of sound segments or syllables that make up a word. Syllabification also helps us to build our knowledge of sounds. We already looked at the sounds of English and discovered that each word is composed of numerous sounds put together. And as we look at what those sounds are all about, and what the sounds combine to form, it is obvious that we should also see them as a leeway to our knowledge of syllabification. To end, this lesson set out to discuss syllabification in the English language. And this is because in vocabulary, as you look at reading comprehension passages and even listening comprehension passages, your vocabulary will always be tested. And some of the things which are tested include syllabification, stress pattern of words, spellings, sound segments, and much more. Hence, we could jointly agree and conclude that when we master the use of syllabification, we will obviously pronounce words well, we will spell them well, and it will improve our grammar and vocabulary power. Thank you very much. It has been your English companion from this end saying goodbye and wishing to meet you in our next